Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Hi, it's Kerry Lutz. I recently decided to move my retirement account into physical precious metals to hedge against the coming times. If you want to move an existing retirement account into physical precious metals that you can hold in your hand, tax-free, there's no company that can do it more quickly and efficiently than Regal Assets. It took them just 24 hours to open my new IRA account, and all I had to do was fill out one simple form. The best part is that Regal Assets does all the work for you. They cover the setup and administrative costs for 2013. If you're interested in making the same move I did, call 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620. That's 855-678-6620, or visit them at regalassets.com. You'll be glad you did, and tell them Kerry sent you. You are listening to the FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1230 WBZT. Well, sometimes it's hard to know who the players are and what side they're on. You really need a scorecard to tell, especially when you're looking at the administration's relationship with the Muslim Brotherhood and Sharia Law and these networks. Here to help clear things up is Ryan Mauro, and you've seen his work on Front Page Magazine and others. Ryan, welcome to the Financial Survival Network.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, so what's going on here? Obama's doing a shout out to the Muslim Brotherhood. He's addressing the 50th annual convention of the Islamic Society of North America, which is a pro-Sharia and so-called moderate Muslim entity. What's going on here?
Right, well, this is basically just an example of a trend that we've been seeing since 9/11, where the prominent Muslim American organizations in the United States, which are actually outgrowths of the Muslim Brotherhood, are partnering with the administration that's in power as they try to reach out to the Muslim American community. Obviously, that doesn't mean that the majority or even a huge amount of Muslim Americans are Islamists, radicals, but the fact is that the most powerful organizations with the influence are. And in this latest incident, and you can read about it at our website, clarionproject.org, President Obama sent a videotaped address congratulating the Islamic Society of North America, a U.S. Muslim Brotherhood entity, according to the federal government, actually. He sent them a videotaped address praising their work, thanking them for their, quote, partnership with his administration on their 50th anniversary. And the same convention that he was praising actually had a lineup of a whole list of Islamist speakers, including ones that have publicly called for Sharia law in America, saying that the U.S. Constitution is flawed because it grants equality between Muslims and non-Muslims. And if I'm able to find this stuff out, then the government should be able to also. But it looks like powerful organizations like this that can bring in a lot of votes, mobilize a lot of support, don't get that type of background check.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is Google these guys, and it's very clear exactly where they stand. In Sharia law, it's like basically if you get caught shoplifting, they cut your hand off, right?
Right, and there's some disagreement about what the individual tenets of Sharia law are among Islamists, but the bottom line is that they want to create an Islamic state, and that clashes fundamentally with Western values and our identity as a country. And some of them will say, well, we don't want Sharia in America, but what they're saying is they don't want it now because it's not a Muslim majority country. So there's differences in opinions, but the bottom line is if you come from the Islamist ideology, if you support the Muslim Brotherhood, then there is something seriously wrong. And that's not an organization that should be put up on a platform. And the reason these organizations are able to achieve that is because they look and sound so different from Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is easy to understand. They kill anyone that they possibly can on the other side. They scream Allahu Akbar, and they say they're going to kill you. It's easy to see that that's evil. But then these Muslim Brotherhood derivatives and other Islamists, they are comfortable in Western culture on a day-to-day basis. They're actually nice people to talk to. They're genuinely nice. They engage in charity, and they present themselves as the moderate solution to the real extremists like Al-Qaeda. But then when you dig below the surface, what you find is that they subscribe to the Muslim Brotherhood ideology.
Yeah, are these guys like CARE or?
Yes, CARE is the big one, and CARE is the Council on American Islamic Relations.
Mm-hmm. And are they actively out there supporting terrorist organizations?
Basically, what they try to do is pursue their political agenda here at home. Over the years, one of the things that they would do is defend the actions of Hamas and Hezbollah, Hamas being a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, so the affinity was the closest there, and they would refuse to condemn them when challenged. Their language is modified since 9/11 because they're just in the spotlight so much. But we don't have proof that they're actually sending money to the terrorist organizations, but these are political organizations. It's about ideology. It's about pursuing the political goals of these groups as opposed to materially supporting them, because if you do that, then your whole network gets rolled up by the FBI.
Right, so they're keeping a low profile as far as funding goes, but their heart is in the right place. It's in the on the side of the terrorists, and when a terrorist act occurs, as you said, they refuse to condemn it, and it's all about supporting, right, infiltrating the political system here in the U.S.
Right. Now, if you ask them about 9/11, will they condemn that? Sure, because they do disagree with Al-Qaeda on certain tactics that they use, but the end goal is the same. If you ask them to condemn Hamas or Hezbollah as organizations, they won't do it. Or if you ask them to condemn attacks on Israeli soldiers, usually they won't do it. So it's a little bit more nuanced, but because they disagree with Al-Qaeda on some things, that seems to be what everyone focuses on, and that's what the groups emphasize. They say, look, we disagree with Al-Qaeda on A, B, C, and D. But then what they don't bring up is the areas where they disagree, or the areas where they do agree, I mean. And that's in resurrecting the caliphate, or that Israel shouldn't exist, or that the Muslim Brotherhood is a moderate force that should be running the Middle East. They support the different pillars of the ideology politically, and that's why they succeed.
Right. So how do you expose these guys? How do you show what they're really all about and start getting the administration to choose sides here?
There's two things that need to be done. First, you have to expose these groups using declassified FBI documents, declassified Muslim Brotherhood memos, including one from 1991 that gives a list of 30 of their fronts, and the Islamic Society of North America is one of them listed in that Brotherhood document, and statements by federal prosecutors. We have all of the most powerful evidence on our side, and so on the one hand you have to expose them, but then you also have to offer an alternative. And at clarionproject.org, what we do is we say, look, you don't, to the administration and politicians and all people of influence, we say, look, you don't have to choose between the Muslim Brotherhood derivatives and ignoring the Muslim American community. We understand that you need a partner in the community, but there are secular-minded Muslims that love America, that love Western values, and have a modern, reformed interpretation of their faith. And those are the ones that need to be put up on a pedestal. It's true that they don't have the support, the networks, the offices, the conventions of the Muslim Brotherhood derivatives because they're newer, they're younger, they haven't gotten tons of overseas financing. But these are the folks like Dr. Zuhdi Jasser who we need to uphold and as leaders of the Muslim American community and of the Muslim world around the globe.
Right. And what percentage do you think the Brotherhood really represents of the total Muslim community?
It depends on if you're talking about in the United States or if you're talking about around the world. The reason it's so hard is because some will say that they don't support the Muslim Brotherhood as a political party, but they still support the overall goal of implementing Sharia-based governance. And so there's no real statistics out there, particularly in the United States, of how many Muslim Americans support the Muslim Brotherhood. And you have to also remember, some of those that support the Muslim Brotherhood do it out of ignorance because they have their colleagues out there saying the Brotherhood is this great force, and so just based on that information, they express their support. So it's really hard to tell. Definitely the vast majority of Muslim Americans are moderate and don't subscribe to that ideology. But the fundamental problem, again, is the leadership, those that are able to influence the politics and the policies of the community.
Right. So it's all a little bit hazy, and, you know, it's like other communities, like what percentage of the black community really supports Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson? Are they real leaders or not? We could have that debate for a long time. Don't really know. But do you think the Brotherhood in the U.S. is really a dangerous force or potentially dangerous?
Both. They are dangerous as is because of their influence on policy. Brotherhood tied individuals and apologists for the Brotherhood Network that actually advise the Department of Homeland Security. That's fact. It sounds crazy, but it's fact. But on the point of Muslim support for the Muslim Brotherhood, one point I'd like to make is that at ClarionProject.org, we're tracking a lot of the anti-Brotherhood movements among Muslims throughout the Muslim world. Because the Muslim Brotherhood is very good at getting elected, but then once they get into power, people realize that their governance isn't as good as they thought it would be. And so in Egypt, you had the Muslim Brotherhood get elected, and they came to power, but then very quickly the people turned against them, and that's why the Brotherhood was thrown out of office. So that's another reason why it's hard to gauge exactly the level of support for the Brotherhood, is because they have a lot of support until people realize what that support results in.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Egypt, no sooner were they in there than the people took to the streets, and there were 20 or 30 million people that took to the streets and just wanted them out of there like so quickly. It was rather amazing. I mean, it was incredible.
The problem that we've had with the radical Islamic ideology is that it's been so popular, and how does the United States, if we're demonized in the Muslim world, combat that ideology and that popular support? And it turned out that the Brotherhood did that job for us. They came into power, they were popularly elected, and that was a very frightening thing to see, and a frightening wake-up call to Americans. But it was even more of a wake-up call to Egyptians once they got to see what that rule was like. And you had what some say are the largest political demonstrations in human history took place in Egypt in order to get the Brotherhood out, and that's why the army intervened. Unfortunately, you still have the Obama administration that's on the side of the Brotherhood saying that they're moderate and that the army shouldn't have done that. And so we've been consistently on the wrong side in Egypt.
Hey, you know what it reminded me of? Like, I had this, my daughter had this friend, her best friend, who I really couldn't stand. I thought she was the worst influence and tried to break up the friendship. And then they went off to college together, lived together in the same room, small room. And after 2 weeks, they had this massive blow up and they never talked to each other again. And I said, gee, if I thought it was that easy, I would have just put them in a room together years before and they could have had that blow up and I would have been done with it years before.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect example. It's a perfect. I'm probably even going to use that example on other programs because I remember in 2006 when Hamas won the Palestinian elections, and that's when everyone said, look, that means the Middle East is going to hell in a handbasket. There's nothing that we can do, and everyone was really pessimistic. And I said, you know what? Over the long term, this is probably a very good thing. And now Hamas, their approval rating in the Gaza Strip where they were elected is at somewhere around 20%.
And like Congress, like the Democrats in Congress, right? Same thing. Because, spitting out theories and death to America and all that is great. And then when you actually get in there and you have to do something and lead and try to improve the lot of the people, which you've been making worse all these years, all of a sudden it's a whole new story and it calls for certain skills that you probably don't have, like oratory and reading teleprompters is great. But then when it calls for leadership and new ideas and implementation and execution, gee, we didn't realize it was going to be this tough, did we?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And what's good about what happened in Egypt is that it was just such a massive demonstration of loss for the Muslim Brotherhood to have that many people come out. More people protested them than protested Mubarak. And to come out against the Brotherhood, and that's where the Brotherhood was founded. That's supposed to be their strong home base.
Yeah.
And for them to get kicked out by their own people like that, it debunks all their propaganda where they say that the Muslim world is just victimized and controlled by the evil Zionist American conspiracy. Well, here, they had their shot to govern, and the people turned against them. They have no one to blame but themselves. And you better believe that Muslims across the Middle East saw that. And so that also hurts their chances of taking power in all of the other surrounding countries.
Exactly. And we'll see what happens in Libya as well.
It's okay. And the website is clarionproject.org. That's the only one that people need to go to and get their daily updates.
All right. clarionproject.org. And Ryan, thanks so much for coming on the Financial Survival Network. And we'll have a link to the site in the show notes. Really appreciate your being on.
Thank you very much.
This show was brought to you by PrepareWise. They're the leading producer of certified GMO-free, chemical-free, organic emergency preparedness food. I buy all my emergency preparedness food there, and you should too. I like the 183-serving mega sample pack. It's an amazing value. It's $280. That's less than $2 per meal. Go to preparewise.com. That's preparewise.com and use the code LUTZ, L-U-T-Z, to get free shipping and much more.
The Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.